July 12th, 6:40, 10 minutes late. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate it. So as luck would have it, I put out an open invitation to any candidate on the Clark County ballot. Come on down and let's talk. We have a regular Wednesday evening filming session here with group discussion, etc. And so as soon as they heard candidates were going to be here, nobody showed up, which is fine because they knew that it was going to be live streamed on Facebook and that it would also have a little bit higher quality recording as well posted to the Facebook page later this week. And you are all invited to have your supporters know that it will be posted and they'll be able to see.
I copied your link to my
Okay,
page.
good. All right. So as luck would have it, we have 3 candidates for Port. And we're going to do a little 10-minute introduction, getting to know you session. And then I'm going to ask we flipped a coin. I'm going to ask one of the candidates to leave so that we don't in any way violate the Open Public Meetings Act. And because 2 of the people who showed up are currently in positions with the Camas-Washougal, the Port of Camas-Washougal. And but let's just introduce yourself, what position exactly you're running for, and go around just with your names, and then just have a general conversation getting to know you.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Larry Keister. I'm running for Commissioner, Port of Camas-Washougal, District Number 3.
Don Orange. I'm running for the Port of Vancouver, District 1. And I own an auto repair store just up the street from here.
And I'm John Spencer. I'm currently a Port Commissioner in District 1 with Port of Camas-Washougal and running for re-election. Or I guess it's actually first election since Larry and I were both
Be careful, you don't want a PDC complaint.
Right, exactly. Yeah, this will be first election.
First election. Right, exactly.
You have to understand that this is the first election for both John and I because we were appointed commissioners. So this is very new to us.
To all 3 of us, apparently.
Yeah.
So why were you appointed?
I had a vacancy in District 3. Commissioner Bill McCrae-Smith stepped down and opened up a vacancy. I'd been involved with the port since 2008 as an active citizen, and I wanted to become more involved. So I filled that position through an interview process.
Okay. It's a nonpartisan position, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So did you just apply for the job, or how did that?
I've been working on a number of projects with the Port Commissioners and with Port staff, and also with the City of Washougal in regards to the Port Trail at the waterfront, and tying in the Port property with the downtown area of Washougal. So I've been involved in a number of activities with the Port. So for me to step into that position was kind of it was an easy step for the commissioners because I was already involved, and I have a passion for what the Port is bringing to Camas and Washougal.
But it wasn't. You'll get to know my question style here. So it wasn't a conflict of interest or anything?
No.
You didn't have any business relationship?
No, I was just an active citizen. I attended meetings, and both Port of Camas-Washougal meetings and Washougal City Council meetings. They work very closely together, and so there was no conflict.
How about you, John? How did your vacancy occur? Do you remember?
Mark
Lampton.
Lampton, thank you. Mark Lampton tragically died in office ahead of me. And similar to Larry, there was a application process, and I applied because it seemed like a neat opportunity to do good things in my community, and got it.
Okay.
I will say that I was first with Larry and me, so I got to appoint or help appoint Larry,
Oh,
and one of the best decisions I've made so far on the board.
so far,
So-
so far. How about you, Don?
Nobody died.
Nobody died. Tell me about what district you live in, Don.
I live in District 1, about a mile west of the mall.
Okay.
I moved to District 1 on St. Patrick's Day. Specifically and exactly because I have a passion for what's going on with the port, and I didn't see anyone running for this position that represented the values that I hold for the Columbia River and for the city of Vancouver. And we live in a beautiful place, and I want to pass it on to the future generations at the very, very least in as good a shape as it is. This area, this gorge, and this Columbia River is not what it was when Lewis and Clark came through here. But we cannot degrade it further. And the Port of Vancouver has awesome opportunities to build economic, clean jobs, and Lord knows we need jobs. We don't need a few jobs, we need thousands of jobs in Clark County. It'll make our community more whole. When you talk to people that go over and work in Portland and they get stuck in traffic, and a fair part of their life is an hour to an hour and a half to go over there and leave a chunk of their paycheck, and it damages our community. Besides financially, it damages the people's attachment to Vancouver. And Vancouver's awesome. There's tens of thousands of people that get stuck in traffic, spending their life and their wages on gasoline while they're moving 0 miles an hour.
Well, and now we're going to have to pay tolls on the roads, apparently.
I know that that's a rumor. I have to believe that it isn't going to happen. I have to believe that we can, but we also have a 100-year-old bridge between here and Oregon, and anybody, and these folks are from Camas-Washougal, which isn't, and if they're fortunate, they're not commuting across the bridges, but it's got this whole area here completely, and it's really damaging the Port of Vancouver. We bring freight into the Port of Vancouver that has to go over into Portland.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, enough of these introductions. Bye. We don't want, because I'm wanting to ask follow-up questions, and it's policy related. So while we're talking about, or verging on talking about policy, well, before we get to that, let me back up. Can you explain for each of your ports, something about the makeup of the revenue produced? Are the ports self-supporting generally?
Yes.
Okay.
So Port of Camas-Washougal has 3 main components. We have an industrial park, a marina, and an airport. The industrial park is the cash cow of the port. The marina and the airports pretty much, but don't quite break even. So our revenue stream is very much in the leasing of industrial buildings. We also, of course, levy taxes. I believe our levy is currently 7 cents.
Okay.
And in our case, we make enough money operationally to cover all of our operations. so that the tax levy goes straight to building new things. Be it a new industrial building, which then enables somebody to come in and build a business and create jobs, or to improve the airports or the marina, thereby providing a better standard of living for our community.
How many jobs do you
Right
generate?
now, in our marina, or in our industrial park, I believe we're north of 900 jobs. And for cities of Camas-Washougal, particularly Washougal, the industrial park is in Washougal, that's a very significant number of jobs for the town.
Yeah, great. So what about for Vancouver, John? The port?
Vancouver's a little different makeup. We have the longshore component, which is, we have deep water. We're the furthest east, the furthest inland deep water port on the Columbia River.
Okay.
We get ships here, and we're also a break bulk terminal. And
A what?
Break bulk, which means that we're not really a container terminal.
All
We
right.
don't.
Okay.
Portland's designed for containers. Tacoma's designed for containers. We ship wheat, lots of wheat here. We bring in lots of steel. It comes right down Mill Plain. Is one truckload is one slab of steel. They weigh about 60, 70,000 pounds apiece, and they go over to a rolling mill in Portland. And when we were talking a minute ago about the bridge is a fuse, you could say. And when the bridge gets lifted, and one of the effects, and when I bring this up, of having that issue going on is where people ship to has to do with what the cost of moving things is. So if it takes an extra hour to move a truckload of steel
Time is
from
money.
the port of Vancouver, people start looking at other ways to do it. But that's the longshore component. We also have about 3,000 people working on about 2,000 acres down there, and we also have industrial land. We don't have anything to do with the airport. That's somebody else's.
But what I'm really trying to get to from both of you is, what am I paying as a taxpayer for this business? Why isn't it paying for itself?
In Vancouver, to know the history of ports are publicly owned, and we're democratically elected. This is very different than in Oregon.
Okay.
Those positions are appointed by the governor. In Washington, it's a democratic system. There is a tax on our homes. If we live in the Port District, runs about $100 a house, depending. If you have about a $250,000 house, it's going to be about $100 of your property taxes going to the port. In the case of the Port of Vancouver, that is used in a similar way. It's a bonding. It is, when I say that, when the port borrows money to build industrial facilities, if the port borrows money to build a new development down here next to the I-5 bridge, which is going on, they are borrowing against our future tax revenues. So yes, there is a cost to this. The port should be, and a port owes it to the community to be a benefit to the community. And if the port encourages the marine benefit, because we got longshoremen, we've got truck drivers, we've got folks that are doing those jobs, and that's important to our community. Every time the Port of Vancouver builds a new building, it's leased out before it's finished. And to build more industrial infrastructure makes it more tempting for people to move the jobs to Vancouver.
Okay, so is that the way the Camas-Washougal port is funded?
Yeah.
The same, okay.
Another way to look at it is, what would it look like if we did not have tax revenue? We would continue our operations because, like I said, we self-fund the operations, but we would not have the bonding capacity to build
To
new
expand
buildings. And so, Clark County is growing, and we want to continue to provide new opportunities for the new residents of Clark County. That's why you're
So,
paying the tax.
so you're paying the tax and that money goes into a pot over here somewhere, I guess, and then bonds are, issued to cover the debt that you're going to incur to build the buildings to bring in more revenue. Is that?
Yes.
We are borrowing into the future, okay? And for capital development. And the theory is that the capital development develops more ability to make jobs happen here. And the capital development also belongs to the owners of the port, which is the taxpayers. And it's when I'm talking about taking, and there's a number of things right now, the port investments are all on port property. Those can be moved.
Okay.
The port can actually buy and develop land in other parts of the port district. It's worth considering. One of the things that the Port of Vancouver is a little bit weak on over the last few years is having a vision of what we're looking for. When we talk about this, the question is, what do we want? Do we want 21st century kinds of things, 3D printing? Do we want advanced manufacturing? Do we want those sorts of things? Do we want an oil terminal? And this is a question that wasn't, and it's something that we haven't talked about very much as a community, and it gets back page. But for the community to be involved, and the commissioners need to be deeply involved in what the vision needs to be, rather than just going along to get along.
Well, as a citizen, I'm thinking that isn't a decision for an elected official. It should, I'm just positing this idea, it should be by the community. So I don't really want a government to decide whether you're going into 3D printing or solar or oil. Particularly, I mean, I don't, shows my bias, but I just really, when I think about innovation, creativity, being on the cutting edge, government is not the first thing that comes to mind.
So two comments on that.
Okay.
I've got to come in after that.
Sure. First, you're begging the question of why have a port at all?
Right. Yeah.
Because private industry
Right.
builds buildings and creates jobs, and so why does the government need to do it? For a couple reasons. First, we as ports have special authorities over aquatic lands.
Yeah.
And I would argue that you want a public agency that does not strictly have a dollar sign bottom
Right,
line
not competing with
to work on that. So you want a organization that takes the full community impact into perspective in making some of these decisions. The other is that we have what is termed patient capital. We can build a building even in the middle of a recession. and work to create jobs when private sector won't. And that is one of the key reasons why we exist as well. And as a economic development agency, I guess there's three things. We have certain authorities to, in our case, for instance, we are able to work with the Corps of Engineers out of Portland rather than the Corps of Engineers out of Seattle. If somebody wants to partner with us to get something done, we bring special value to the table because of that. So there's certain advantages to having that government agency involved with the development efforts.
So long as the government is getting input, not holding meetings in secret and not making decisions without any input of the people. I mean, you know.
Precisely.
I guess you get voted out of office if you.
I guess I'm absolutely in favor of, one of the slogans of my campaign is put the public back into public port. And one of my big frustrations is that we have failed to do that. And when I'm talking about the commissioners needing to be involved in setting a vision with the community, and the commissioners should be also working with the city government of Vancouver, with all the stakeholders to see what it is that people want us to do. There's small business people in this county that would love to see them develop things that would allow their business to be more successful along the railroad and so on. And when we talk about whether the government's involved, if this is entirely private, we don't get a voice at all. In the proper context, the port, which is a quasi government business, in a proper way, we're listening to the people, we're working with the people to move things forward, to develop economic opportunity. And the other thing is, if the government doesn't own the waterfront, then private industry owns the waterfront. And if I want to export the lumber that comes out of my lumber mill, and a private source owns the Port of Vancouver, where am I? This is our waterfront. This is our this idea that he puts forward. And one of the things that small businesses and medium-sized businesses have a lot of trouble with is partially because we're busy running our businesses, and partially because of what we have for banking situation that we have in small business. You have a shortage of capital, and so if you want to go take a piece of buildable land and take it from scratch and bring it up to be useful as a warehouse or as a manufacturing facility, it's a big challenge. If the port can set things in motion, the port also ought to be encouraging entrepreneurship. Things are going to change in every way in this century faster than we've ever seen it happen before.
So, does the port in Camas-Washougal have a plan? Yes, they do. I've read it. I mean, you know, so, and Vancouver has a plan, but aren't plans supposed to be incorporating visions?
Yes, and
I know you have one because I just was looking at it.
A challenge that I have seen with the Port of Vancouver specifically is that over the years, and I've seen this in nonprofits, I've seen this in other things, is that the director sets the vision of what he wants to happen, and the commissioners go along. And it's a problem. It is something, when elected, that I'm going to have to fight against and fight to sit down and make the vision with the community. That's my view of what a commissioner needs to be doing. And then we set a vision. We say, this is what we want to do. We want to attract all sorts of, when you laid out solar, is that a possibility? When we lay out, one of the things going on with the port, and it's a good thing, is that we're going to end up with a walking path, I think, that'll go from
Camas to,
Oh,
well, walking.
it'll be,
Actually, county to county eventually.
Yeah.
you'll have to be in good shape to get there in a day, I will
Yeah.
tell you right now. So, and these are good things, and that's my view.
So, do you feel fairly, grounded in the vision that you have in your plan? And, I mean, it
Very
looked
much.
like it was last updated in 2015 or something.
Yeah, we actually just reviewed that at our planning retreat
Uh-huh.
in early June,
Uh-huh.
and are in the process of updating it
Okay,
again. So
okay. So every few years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is the vision that you've laid out are you attracting different kinds of businesses, or what?
Right.
Yeah.
So our vision, and I certainly hope I get this right, and the two commissioners don't come after me at the next meeting, is we want to continue developing land to create jobs and create recreation opportunities. That the recreation is actually part of our mission statement. Hence our trail along
that
the
trail
river.
So wonderful.
We have 3 parks right now. I'm personally advocating that we add a dog park out by the airport. So our vision is to basically continue doing what we're doing. We do not, we discriminate on who we rent to in terms of what are they bringing to the community. Are they bringing jobs? Are they somebody new? Are they are they good jobs, I guess, is the other big one. Is that, we don't want $110 an hour jobs. We want $50,000, $75,000 jobs. So it's keep moving and try to keep up with, or my preference is to beat the pace of developments in East County to, as you were saying, give people opportunities to stay on our side of the river.
Right. So has your port taken a position on whether or not, what's your position environmentally with
On the oil terminal?
Yeah, not necessarily the oil terminal, because honestly, even though Don Stenke has spent his entire life, and I think that we've just scratched the surface of problems, because I only say that not to be negative, probably more to be provocative, but we need to be ready for the next mistake.
Right. Okay.
Or opportunity.
So I think what you're asking is,
are we committed to keeping our river clean?
absolutely. So the trail we just opened up is actually the first salmon-safe park and trail along the river, I believe, on the Washington side. No pesticides. Actually, I don't believe we use any pesticides whatsoever. Or if we do, it's very, very targeted and, if you will, natural pesticides. We're not using Roundup.
Yeah.
Jeez. All of the water is treated on sites, so on and so forth. So we're very, very interested in augmenting the natural beauty. And
Is there
status
an
of the
actual
river.
stated policy at any of our ports that says, we want to not make it negative, go more to the positive in the industrial park or in the property? Yeah, and if you don't know know the answer, just, but it's something, basically saying in your policies that fossil fuels will not be supported, or that, the footprint, You know, all my neighbors say toxic coming down the rails than you will ever know. And those rails have been here long before you, because I live east and down toward the river. And, you know, there's been things coming in on those rails for years and, you know, so that are a lot more dangerous than oil coming in.
To something that needs to be said, or I'm not addressing your port right now, from mine. One is the quantity of oil that we're talking about is about 500 rail cars a day coming down through the gorge to be transferred at the Port of Vancouver. This amount of oil that we're talking about is twice as much oil as would fuel every car and truck in the state of Washington. This is like 5 billion gallons a year, and the actuarial tables tell us that there's going to be a train wreck every 2 years. Whether it's going to be right on the water, whether it's going to be catastrophic, I don't know. The other thing to think about here, it's not at all clear whether the Port of Vancouver is going to make that decision, whether the governor is going to make that decision. Mm-hmm. This is a 6-year term, mm-hmm. and there's going to be more questions about what we should be handling, mm-hmm. how we should be handling it.
Yeah.
The culture at the Port of Vancouver, they've got excellent environmental folks. They've invented a box that I can't remember the name of, and you know what I'm talking about. And what it's designed, it's so simple. And this is one of those things where sometimes with a quasi-government group, this box, the drainage comes down off the roofs. The roofs have galvanized tin. Mm-hmm. Well, there's zinc in that.
The drainage.
It damages the river. But these come down and they go through this thing and it filters them, and the water is so much better after just going through a box that's probably twice the size of this table. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's I'm not going to try to guess any further because I'll be wrong. But then this is the first water treatment. And then there's other water treatments that are built in that do great stuff. This terminal is one small part of what the Port of Vancouver is, but unfortunately over the last few years it has absolutely dominated all of the discussion. And for me, we need to get by it. But the truth of the matter is, however we proceed, there are going to be more, and there are going to be large decisions about what kind of freight. The city of Vancouver has made it clear that they don't want any terminals of this kind. Mm-hmm. But how we handle things, and are there extraordinarily dangerous chemicals that have been handled in cities around the country? Mm-hmm. Yes. And should we be absolutely careful about how those are done and constantly vigilant? In the case of the oil doesn't have anything good in it for Vancouver. We don't need it. There's a glut of oil. This will be good for the oil company and not the community. And it is, to me, it's an attractive nuisance to triple the number of oil trains coming down the gorge.
So that's why I'm saying, is there anything that either port can do proactively in terms of policy so that we don't have to, it's taken us a lot of time to clean up after a decision that there are many people that favor that decision still, but I mean, it wasn't, having lived through it, the public wasn't in on that decision, or it didn't appear to be. So can we get ahead of the next crisis rather than picking up the pieces.
I believe that we need to absolutely focus just constantly on that. What we've learned over the last few years. The ground that this oil terminal is being talked about has been polluted earlier, and there's been amazing amounts of effort and energy to get them clean. In the city of Portland, the Willamette River is a mess from mistakes that were made decades ago, and we need to do everything that's humanly possible not to be making mistakes. We need to learn what the best practices are, and we've got a Boise Cascade site down there that's going to turn into condominiums, but it had to be cleaned up. Industrial sites, the port of Richfield's gone through a cleanup that's lasted about 20 years, and none of these cleanups are perfect.
Who was on the Boise Cascade property before? Was it Alcoa?
Well, Alcoa was down on the water, but the Boise Cascade property was Boise Cascade for generations.
My answer to your question is...
Excuse me.
Well, no, I just...
That was not
You
a dig
put a
at all.
nickel in me and then tried to shut me up.
Oh.
Excuse me.
The classic public sector plug: get involved, pay attention, show up to your meetings. Thank you very
True.
much. That is the only way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
I could, and my fellow commissioners and I would vote in every environmental protection you want. All it takes is a new commissioner or two to come in and say, nah. So this is where it is so important to
So
have people
before
involved.
you were appointed, before you were on the commission, were you attending meetings on a regular basis?
No.
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 Are they videoed or something? from Camas?
Not Camas, no. You
Camas.
pretty much have to
Okay.
be there. We discussed videotaping them a while ago and decided not to invest the money because there's been no request, no.
Don't get me
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
I heard you
Do not
earlier.
get me going. It
I tell
costs
you,
nothing. We're live streaming this on Facebook. She's sitting there eating a Subway sandwich for those who can't see this.
Right.
You know, whilst doesn't cost anything. Hardly anything. You should
Anyway.
think about it.
Yes. What I was going to say is
Get
I was
involved.
you get involved.
How
I was
about you? Did you ever attend meetings before?
I've been attending the port meetings for the last few years. The import of people being involved in their school boards, in their PUD, in all of these things, these decisions. I'll be honest with you, I don't think 5 years ago that 10% of the people in this county could have named their port commissioners. I'm still bumping into people that didn't know we had a port.
Right.
And that people, in order to make things work, we desperately need citizen involvement. I'll urge anybody that watches this out in the airwaves to get involved in all these things. I can't be involved in everything. Before I started going to the port meetings, I was paying a lot of attention to the Clark County Board of Commissioners, which was an interesting
Exercise.
this is before they became a 5-person.
I believe Larry just showed up.
So
Was that Larry?
Is Larry here?
Yeah, Larry's here.
Okay, but we're not quite finished. So, boy, we should be though. Why don't you close it for just a second and we'll make a
Anything
hand
you
up.
want from me before I have to
Yes.
go? Right.
2 more minutes?
Yeah, just a few more minutes.
Okay, Larry, 2 more minutes. Sorry. You want
So,
Sharon to sit down?
Before,
Okay.
there's so much to talk about and so little time. And I'm so happy that you came, but I want you to give any kind of concluding comment
Sure.
that you want, but, you know, like, where's your office? How do people get in touch with you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you need?
Yeah. So go to www.friendsofjohnspencer.com or feel free to call me 360-839-7575. I'd love to talk. Just my quick plug. If you are happy with the way the Port of Camas-Washougal are working, if you're happy with how we've developed so far, then I recommend you stick with me. If you will, I'm the establishment candidate, which sounds wrong to say politically. I probably just lost a bunch of votes. But I'm very proud of the port. And if you think we need to go in an entirely new direction, vote for the other guy.
Vote for the other guy.
Or
call you up and
or
tell
call
you-
me up and tell me where I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
That's my message.
Great, good deal. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now, without boring you, we were talking a little bit about having forward-thinking, forward-directed policies in the plans that the ports develop, so that the community doesn't wake up one day and realize that we have a lease with an oil company, you know, so that the fact of the matter is that I am sure that decision was, that particular decision, to use it as an example, which is what people from Vancouver do, we're obsessed about this decision. And rightly so, I think. But, you know, there are some good business reasons that I'm sure were, and the argument for jobs and whatnot that were considered. But it sure woke up a lot of sleeping environmentalists and people having nightmares about big fires of, you know, like were happening all over the country with the, you know, with the tanks and whatnot. But does your port develop plans that are forward-thinking enough so that we're not always cleaning up mistakes that we might not be able to recover?
The answer to that is yes, we do have a plan. Our mission statement is to bring jobs, infrastructure, and recreational opportunities to the community. And every decision that's made by the port commissioners or port staff is made following our strategic plan. Our strategic plan was designed or implemented about 10 years ago, but it was a community project. There was a number of meetings where the citizens got together. So what do you want to see for the future of not only our port, but the future of our two cities? And remember, Port of Camas-Washougal represents both Camas and Washougal. Then every decision that is made by our executive director is reviewed to, does it follow our strategic plan?
And the board reviews proposed action by the director, or does, you know, we have a strong mayor system, we have a weak mayor system, we have policy-making boards,
Right.
and then we have more hands-on boards, so
Our commissioners set policy, taxes, that sort of thing. But we make the policy, the executive director carries out that policy. So it's a team effort. And I must say that the team at the Port of Camas-Washougal is, since 2008, when I got involved with the port, it is the strongest, most representative of the citizens that it has ever been. We work together as a team, not only the other two commissioners and myself, but with our executive director, our finance director, our the entire office staff, our maintenance department, everyone talks to one another. We work together as a team. That's what makes things happen.
And yet, you both have challenges in the election. You know, I was just counting before people came. I think there are like 50 people who are running unopposed.
Right.
In,
Right.
you know, and yet both of your positions, you have people trying to take your job from you.
I look at it as people want to be on a winning team, and we are a winning team.
What a spin! I like that. No, it's it's
the
what you
truth.
believe, and
Yeah.
it's the truth. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Not so much.
Not so.
I think our port, I don't like to focus on the oil terminal.
Right.
The oil terminal came from a set of meetings that went on before the public or anybody else. I'm doing fine, thanks. Knew that an oil terminal was being considered. There were what we call serial meetings, which is the director meeting with each of the 3 commissioners to find out if they'd go for an oil terminal. And then there was meetings with the oil company behind closed doors. There was sales staff sent to the Bakken region before anybody out here even realized it was being considered. And so by the time all of this went on, the Supreme Court has just absolutely said that these were improper meetings by unanimous decision. The port has been sued and had to pay out tens of thousands of dollars for, not only were these contracts agreed to with the oil company behind closed doors, half of the clauses in the contract were redacted so that we didn't know what was in them. And when we were objecting to the idea of 100 million gallons of oil coming down through this gorge a week, we found out when we finally got the contracts opened up that they were actually planning twice as much, that the contract allowed them to do twice as much. And what I'm getting to is, what I want to see happen, and this is really the critical difference between my opponent and myself, is I want open, transparent government. I want the people that are paying the $10 million that you just talked about to see what's going on at the port. My opponent was recruited by one of the commissioners that's there that was deeply involved in passing the oil terminal in the first place. My opponent says he likes the way that the port has been being run. It has an awesome staff. We need to listen to the public and make our decisions based on what's good for the public.
So the public will be listened to.
Indeed.
We've got an election. It depends how many people actually vote, I
The-
suppose.
The commissioner that I'm aiming to replace said that about 95% of the decisions that were made in executive session where the public is barred. Executive session is designed for very specific matters. It's not designed for going in the back room and negotiating.
Has that been said publicly? Has that been said publicly?
I'm not, has what been said?
95%
That
of
was
the
said
decision?
by Commissioner Ryan
Right.
Wolf. And this commissioner objects to the Supreme Court. Mr. Wolf is an attorney, and so it's a little bit embarrassing for him. And he objects to the Supreme Court decision. But we have to, this is our port, this is our river, and we have to have the public involved. It's a part of my being. It's not as easy to run things in a democratic fashion as it is to just somebody make a decision, but it always works out better. We want to live in a democracy. at work. And where we work is generally not the most democratic situation. But when we have more people involved in making the decisions at work, and you call it teamwork, you call it whatever you want, the better the decisions come out and the better we move forward.
So has your opponent, have you had a debate, the two of you?
The closest thing that has happened that way is for the two of us to sit down at a table like this and be interviewed by the young Democrats
Oh, the Dems.
of Clark County, and I'm proud to say I got their endorsement. But
I'm sure they weren't going to make the mistake twice. Anyway, I was thinking about the county commission. Anyway, let's not go.
I'm not going there.
Okay.
I'm running exactly.
Well, wait a minute. I
for
thought this was
Vancouver.
nonpartisan.
This is nonpartisan.
Yeah.
It is, and it very much is nonpartisan. In the words of a friend of mine, and his name is
Rhymes with.
his name is Royce Ballard.
Oh.
He said you don't have to be an environmentalist not to want to blow up. And Royce has never really told me whether he's a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
So
Back in the day, like 15 minutes ago, I was asking about the plans. So, and you said once more, I don't want to talk about the oil terminal. So let's move on from the oil terminal and tell me what your plans are, not yours, but the Port of Vancouver, what our port's plan is for the future. Are we going to keep running into these issues?
ways? Are we going to have new and different kinds of cars? I think I mentioned Volvo just decided that they're not going to build any more gasoline-powered cars in 2 years. Are we going to have Volvos coming in through our port? Are we going to? And I don't like to think of the Chinese getting a good foothold in the auto industry, but what are we going to have coming and going? And as long as these things are good for our economy and good for our environment and good for the coming generations, we want them.
So if Subaru, who's a big port user, doesn't go electric or a hybrid, which is what the way Volvo's going, will you be? I mean, you know, are you? How far down in the weeds does the port go with that? Do they say that they don't want Subaru's business anymore?
Oh, good heavens, no.
Okay.
We export Western Star trucks out of this port. We import Subarus. We maybe and Subaru is an example of a company that is trying to move ahead. All of this, all the developments that we're going. I'm a small businessman, and that means I'm a pragmatist. You don't exist as a small business owner unless you make pragmatic decisions, which means by definition, you're fiscally conservative. We are going to do things to improve our environment, and that's the direction that the world is going in. You don't come up with ways of penalizing people for one thing or another.
It's a balance, right?
There's a balance, and we'll keep moving forward. And we're not going to be dripping oil into the river. If something wants to be brought in, or if there's a move to start moving nuclear waste through here,
Right.
Is that a good idea? I don't think so. Yes, that would.
That'd be a showstopper.
Yeah, but for us to sit down and come up with the various ways, and there's lots. It's very difficult for me to talk deeply about industry. There's a new company here in Vancouver that's called Headgear. I don't know if you're aware of them. You put this thing that looks like a little flashlight on your head and crawl down in a ditch, and this flashlight's a camera, and you're communicating with somebody 1,000 miles away that's an engineer that says, don't open that pipe. That pipe's got natural gas in it. The pipe we were talking about you're going into is over here. Or somebody that's going under a building
So cool.
to clean up a nest of some sort of a creature, they'll tell you whether it's poisonous or whether it's oh no, those are nothing. We've been.
So they're talking about shipping through here, or they're manufacturing?
No, they're not doing either one. They've just opened an office, a large office over here at the fort, and it's a wonderful thing. The reason that I brought them up is because nobody would have imagined these things here 30 years ago.
Yeah.
When my boy was in grade school, I had a cell phone that was the size of a briefcase, and it was almost useless. And we called them car phones. They were part of your car basically. And what we will see coming, and what will be a challenge for the ports, we need to sit down and say, we want to do things that are good for our community, good for our environment, and move. And that doesn't mean we're going to bar things. But it does mean that I can't even say what folks are going to come up with in the next 5 or 10 years.
And you're doing the same.
Excuse me.
The one thing about ports is they have to be able to adjust to the economic benefit, the economic climate of what's going on. So as commodities change, or in our case where we're business oriented, what is the economy asking us to have?
Yeah.
You know, a few years ago, we were looking at putting in some pad-ready locations. So if somebody had an idea, a businessman came to us with an idea, and he said, I need 1,000 square feet, but I have this concept and I want to get moving on it, but to go through the city planning and permit process, it would take time. So we wanted to have pads ready. And all they had to do is say, what do you want? We'll
build it out for you.
What we found, because the economy moved so quickly, is we are building buildings that are fully leased before they're constructed.
And we were just talking about that happening in Vancouver. Yeah, okay.
So we have been 100% occupied at our industrial park for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And does that continue? We're certainly hoping it does. But we have to be ready to look at, in our strategic plan, what happens if the economy changes and manufacturing or that type of industry isn't there anymore? How do we prepare to make that change? And in our strategic plan, we can say, do we go to an office complex? Do we go to whatever? But you can't be static when you're dealing with businesses, and ports have to be geared that way. And good ports are. I think that Port of Camas-Washougal is well prepared to make those moves.
So how long have you been in office?
I was appointed in April.
In April.
But I've been involved with the port since 2008.
Right. So, yeah. So what's your pitch to the voters for why they should vote for you?
I'm part of a team. My experience that I bring to my position, the connection that I have with Washougal City Council staff, and citizens of both Camas and Washougal. I represent the city, the citizens of our community, East Clark County, and I represent their interests and their ideas. So I would like to continue with that representation. the experiences that I have dealing with both city government and community issues gives me the vision and the background to make strong decisions. The other thing, and I lightly said people want to be part of a winning team. We are a winning team. We have a track record for representing the community, providing jobs, providing infrastructure, and I think most of all, the protection of the waterfront to make sure that that piece of property is open to the public forever. Public access is key. And the waterfront development that we're in the process of planning now will be a unique development, but unique because it's being built on a unique piece of property, riverfront property. It will complement the downtown of both Camas and Washougal. It won't compete, and that's a real important issue to us, that it is, it's going to be a benefit to the community. Like I say, the port represents the two communities, and we want to work along with them. The port in the last year has reached out to both communities and also to our school districts. And we have a very strong art community in Washougal and Camas. And we're trying to get their ideas involved with what the port is doing. So we work together as a team. We find that, we're all moving kind of in the same direction for the betterment of our community. But if we work together, we can get more done. And that makes sure that we have the community input. We're part of the community, and we want to represent that. So, I want to continue with that.
Yeah, okay. So you just had a retreat some time ago where you were discussing the future plans for the port, is that?
Well, we have a planning retreat every year.
Okay.
The commissioners and staff get together and review our strategic plan and our mission statement. Then the staff gets together without the commissioners to
Drill
their
down.
input of ideas. What would they like to see? And then we all get together again for kind of a summary.
And when does the public get to input in this?
The public always has input in it. The meetings are open. All of the meetings are open.
And why aren't they video recorded?
We don't record our meetings because we're not set up to do that.
Would you consider it?
We have considered it.
Yeah.
But it would be a budget item that we would have to consider in the future. We do have, pretty good attendance at our meetings. We had good attendance at the planning retreats. So we do have...
The public's invited?
The public is invited, yeah.
That's nice.
We had it. We always have it locally. The last one was here in Vancouver. And then the summary, when we all got together to review the staff's input, that was held at the port offices. And it is open to the public. And the public input is critical to what we do.
Well, I encourage you to do what these two videographers are doing and devote their time and video recording school district. 54% of our tax dollars is going to the schools, and for the quality of what's happening at all the ports. I really, it's wonderful that CBTV has the Port of Vancouver. Thank you very much. Would you like to kind of wrap up with, do you have a phone number or whatnot that people can call?
I have a website.
A website?
I have, it's called Friends of Larry Keister, and I'm slowly building that as, like I say, this is the first time for me in the
Yeah.
political arena. I prefer to spend my time doing my job and doing it well, but I certainly understand the politics of what. I worked for the federal government for 32 years, so I'm well aware of how things move along, and I think the political process and public input is important, especially because I was appointed member of the commission, which was an honor for me, but I worked hard to get that appointment.
So if people want things to continue along the trajectory that they have been on, would they vote for the person for you, or would they, I mean, are there going to be major changes in philosophy or whatever?
No,
Yeah, okay.
because we follow our strategic plan.
All right.
And I think I know the direction that we're moving right now, because we have strong citizen input. I know that that's what the community likes. That's how we know if we're doing a good job. Like I said before, 10 years ago, our commission had a different personality. And this commission, Commissioner Bill Ward, who's been on the commission for quite some time, and then Commissioner Spencer and myself work very well together as a team, along with our executive director, David Ripp. It's a team effort. It's not me with all my ideas. It's us with our ideas.
And the citizens.
And how does this best represent the citizens of our community?
I invite you to bring it up for a vote about whether or not you can really afford what a little old retired lady is doing for 2 school districts here in Clark County. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You've got college students who would be happy to work for you, right? Nah, okay, never mind.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. Okay, well, good, thank you. And
Thank
Dawn,
you.
you
No.
want it? Yeah.
To sum up, my candidacy comes, I want to put the public back in public port. I don't have, these folks seem to have a very, they have a machine that seems to be doing what you're wanting it to do, and the whole works. In the Port of Vancouver, we've had controversy, and unfortunately, and it's unfortunate for the people that work down there. It's unfortunate. The controversy over the oil terminal has overshadowed everything else, and there is a lot more that goes on. I want to put the public back in public port. My opponent thinks the way that it's run in the past is a good thing and wants to continue that. I absolutely want to make the decisions in Vancouver that will affect us in the Columbia River. Right now, we're waiting for the governor to decide, and the
Seems like
courts,
forever.
and
This
the
has been
courts to
going on.
decide on our future. And I think it's time to turn the corner on that. There's going to be an enormous amount of really important stuff come up in the next 6 years, and I have a very different way of approaching it than my opponent.
I'm really, really disappointed that I didn't personally invite anyone here today, and I am so sorry that we didn't have the other two in your 2 positions and your opponent
Yeah.
here as well. And I am very happy to have any of you back who would like to discuss sitting at the same table.
Thank
I
you.
think it would be very helpful for voters.
Sure.
Because as much as I like you, or as much as I like you, you're speaking for your opponent, and I'd rather have them sitting at the table. So,
If I got anything to say in closing,
yes.
democracy works only when people are deeply involved, and I think we have, I think we're in trouble on the national level. I think our country's in big trouble. I think people need to register, vote, and start investigating what's going on. I believe that you're right in your encouragement to these folks to videotape the meetings, because one of the things is, you haven't been going through the controversy that we have over time. The meetings that have been an issue are not videotaped because they're behind closed doors. But in your case, if controversy, and controversies do come around, he said, she said, how did we come to this? I have to agree with you that in 2017, it's time to be able to go back and say, well, this is what the tape said.
Yeah, because
right.
the whole idea about this changing over the last 10, 15 years, it's changed.
Right.
It's time for you guys to have somebody in the office sit there with the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
She's got it leaned up against a coffee cup. It didn't cost a lot.
Yeah, our meetings are audio recorded, but just not video.
And I know that one of the school districts here locally who is not video recording, or which is not video recording at this point in time, it's taking them 3 to 4 months to get the minutes up online.
Oh,
It's over with.
yeah.
The
It's
decisions
history.
were made and done a long
Yeah.
time ago. We
No,
don't need your
yeah.
opinions.
Yeah, ours are quick.
Okay.
They're right up there.
Okay. Oh, I can go on forever griping. That's my gripe. Because after all, this is the right to be heard, right? Okay.
You're selling
All right.
this.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thanks
much
a lot.
for
And I'm
having
sorry
me.
we had to
Thank you.
comply with that open public
And thank
meeting
you,
law.
world.
Very important.
Yeah. Thanks
God
a lot.
bless.